From its opening weekend domestically, we knew that it looked like that might be a little bit of a struggle for Mission Impossible at the box office. Granted, it did have a very big global opening, the biggest in Mission Impossible history. But knowing what was coming down the pipe, knowing that there was going to be Barbie and Oppenheimer and all these things that got released, people knew it was going to depend on the hold for Mission Impossible. And it has gone in a disastrous way for them. After its second weekend, having the biggest drop-off in Mission Impossible franchise history, it is now impossible for Mission Impossible to recover, ironically. This is something that needed to make $900 million just to break even because of its inflated budget. We talked about that a lot, how during COVID, so many things happened that did inflate this budget, especially because so much of it is practical. And Paramount kind of threw Tom Cruise under the bus for this, saying that they went over budget. We didn't want them to do so, but they did nonetheless. And now, even though I loved Mission Impossible 7, everyone has to face the reality that this movie is going to lose so much money. It is going to end up as a box office flop. When we look after its third weekend at the box office, it is now in 5th place, behind Barbie, behind Oppenheimer, behind Haunted Mansion, and once again, behind Sound of Freedom. And as much as I loved Sound of Freedom, as well as Mission Impossible, it's pretty undeniable that the massive success of Sound of Freedom had a big impact on the box office, because when you look at the type of viewer that goes to support Tom Cruise movies and the area of the country where they're from, predominantly, that's been where Sound of Freedom is getting so much funding from. Sound of Freedom continues to do insane things at the box office. Despite the hit pieces from the media, it continues to go and go and go. And for a movie that cost $14 million to make and that Angel Studios only paid $5 million for the rights to distribute, it is now doing massive things at the box office, $150 million domestically, and it got guaranteed an international release. Who knows what it'll do worldwide? But right now, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 is sitting at just under $450 million worldwide. That's a good number, being in its third weekend. But unfortunately, when you have a movie that costs nearly $300 million just for the production budget, that's not going to cut it. This is now a movie that's probably going to end up somewhere in the $600, $700 million worldwide range, and that just doesn't cut it for Mission Impossible. I like this movie. I think it got a lot of good word of mouth from both the audience and the critics, but unfortunately, it's just not resonating with people. People are not going out to see it. They're not going out to support it with everything else that's out right now. And even though it's likely to have decent legs throughout the next several weeks, it's not going to be enough to recover. They should have moved this movie's release date, to be honest. It looked like there was potential for them to do it at one point, but they had confidence, even going right before Barbie and Oppenheimer, that they would succeed, and that's just not been the case. As much as I like the movie, it's time for everyone to admit that Mission Impossible 7 is going to be a massive flop financially.